Hello, Butler kids. Welcome to This Week in History. We're doing 11:8 to 11:14. Check out the next slides. A lot of action. Notable events on 11:8. The first meeting between the Spanish and Aztec empires. Cortez lands in what's currently known as Mexico, and the Spanish become the influence. In 1701, William Penn introduces the Charter of Privileges. This enables local run government in Pennsylvania, but under the Crown of England. In 1731, Ben Franklin opens the first library in the American colonies. In 1864, Abraham Lincoln is elected to his second term as president, still in the middle of the Civil War. In 1889, Montana becomes the 41st state of the Union. And in 1892, Grover Cleveland becomes the 24th president. He was also the 22nd president, and he was the only president in history to have two, I should say, non-consecutive terms. German physicist Wilhelm Röntgen, I didn't say that right at all, produces and detects electromagnetic radiation in wavelength range, today known as X-rays, or Röntgen. I'm going to raise. Somebody who knows how to pronounce that is going to have to correct me. In 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt wins the presidency, defeating Herbert Hoover. FDR is slated with dealing with the Great Depression. He would win an unprecedented 4 terms as president. In 1938, the first African American state legislator is elected in the U.S. ever, from Philadelphia. She goes to Harrisburg. Her name is Crystal Bird Fawcett. To see some information, please click on the link. 1980, Voyager 1 discovers the 15th moon of Saturn, Atlas. There's a video for the Atlas drive-by from Voyager, or actually a later Cassini. You can check that out by clicking the link. In 1983, Wilson Goode becomes the first African-American mayor elected in Philadelphia. He would later face controversy over allowing the police to bomb a home in West Philadelphia. It was called the Move Home. You can find more information on that later. 1984, Anna Fisher becomes the first mom to go into space. There's a picture of her and her daughter. 11:9. Notable events. 1620, the Mayflower, after months at sea, spots Cape Cod, Massachusetts. You can see a little bit more about pilgrims by clicking the link. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte pulls off a coup and becomes the dictator of France, the title of first consul. In 1821, first class for the U.S. Pharmacy School opens in Philadelphia. It still opens today, and it's run by Jefferson University. In 1872, the Great Boston Fire of 1872 destroys 1,000 buildings in Boston. In 1904, the first airplane flight to last more than 4 minutes happens. And in 1944, the Red Cross wins the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1965, several U.S. states and parts of Canada have a series of blackouts. That's a picture of New York City during the blackouts. They last multiple hours. In 1967, NASA Surveyor 6 has a soft landing on the moon. This is the prep for the landing of the Apollo missions in 1969. In 1989, East Berlin opens its borders. This is the precursor to the fall of the Berlin Wall. In 1766, on 11/10, the last colonial governor of New Jersey founds what would become Rutgers University. There's a picture of the original university building. In 1775, the Second Continental Congress founds the Marines in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Happy birthday, Marines. In 1801, Kentucky bans dueling. No more fights. Oof. In 1871, Henry Morton Stanley encounters David Livingstone at Uji near Lake Tanganyika in Central Africa with the immortal phrase, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume." There's a picture of the said event. In 1885, German engineer Gottlieb Daimler unveils the world's first motorcycle. We would also find a company, Daimler Chrysler, still exists today. In 1911, Andrew Carnegie forms Carnegie Corporation for scholarly and charitable works. Many libraries and other buildings for universities become named for Andrew Carnegie through his philanthropic works. In 1917, on 11/10, 41 suffragists are arrested in front of the White House. They were fighting for the right to vote and have allowed today to be where we are with the first woman vice president. 1918, independence of Poland proclaimed by Józef Piłsudski? Sounds Polish. We're going to have to work on that. In 1928, Emperor Hirohito of Japan's possession of imperial regalia is publicly confirmed. In 1950, the Nobel Prize for Literature is awarded to William Faulkner. In 1954, Marine Corps War Memorial unveiled in Arlington County, Virginia, dedicated to the U.S. Marine Corps who died in defense of the U.S. since 1775. And it was inspired by this photo in Iwo Jima, a battle in World War II. 1966, Lunar Orbiter 2 reaches around the moon. In 1969, Sesame Street first premieres on PBS. That's a picture of the 1969 cast. In 1970, Luna 17 from the USSR is launched towards the moon. That was for Russia, who was attempting to get to the moon as well, but never did. 1989, Germany begins to demolish the Berlin Wall. There's video of the wall coming down if you click on the link. Usually we're talking about the past, but this time we're going to talk about the future. In 2084, individuals who are on Mars looking towards the sun will be able to see the transit of Earth across the sun. See a video by clicking the link of Mercury transiting the sun as seen by Earth, the last one in 2019. 11/11 notable events. 1493, Christopher Columbus has sighted the island of Saba. There you can see it circled on the picture. In 1647, Massachusetts passes the first compulsory school attendance law in the American colonies. Kids, you can thank Massachusetts. In 1675, German mathematician Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz demonstrates calculus for the first time. Ooh, calculus sounds like fun. In 1790, chrysanthemums are introduced to England from China. In 1807, Washington Irving's is the first to associate the name Gotham with New York City. In 1811, he looks a little bit like the Penguin from Batman. Cartagena, Colombia declares independence from Spain. In 1864, Sherman's troops destroy Rome, Georgia. This was part of the American Civil War and a bigger effort of Sherman to destroy the South by setting everything in his path on fire. The South has a long memory of this and still doesn't like to hear the name of General Sherman. In 1868, first American amateur track and field meet happens in New York City. In 1889, Washington State is admitted as the 42nd state of the United States. There's 2 states in our history this week. In 1909, construction of the U.S. Navy base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii begins. Pearl Harbor would also be the site of how America goes into World War II after being attacked by the Japanese in 1941. In 1918, World War I armistice is signed by the Allies in Germany, bringing an end to World War I. In 1921, U.S. President Warren G. Harding dedicates a tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington Cemetery. It is always guarded by a soldier, and you can see a video of how that happens. They are there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, since 1921. In 1925, Louis Armstrong and his Hot Five begin their first recording session. You can listen to a track from Louis Armstrong by clicking the link. In 1925, Robert A. Millikan announces discovery of cosmic rays. And in 1926, US Route 66 is established. For a tour of Route 66, click the link. In 1930, patent number US 1781541 is awarded to Albert Einstein for his invention of the Einstein refrigerator, keeping things cool. 1933, Billie Holiday's second song and first hit, Riffin' the Scotch, is released. You can listen to this by clicking the link. And Explorer 2 balloon sets altitude record of 72,000 feet. In 1954, for you sci-fi fans, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, is published by J.R.R. Tolkien. 1961, Catch-22 by Joseph Heller is released. And 1966, Gemini 12 with Lovell and Aldrin launched on a 4-day flight. Both will have roles in the Apollo. In 1972, Dow Jones Index moves above 1,000 for the first time. In 1988, the oldest known insect fossils are found. In 1994, Bill Gates buys Leonardo da Vinci's Codex for $30 million. In 1823, on 11/12, the Great North Holland Canal in Amsterdam opens. In 1910, the first possible movie stunt, man jumps into the Hudson River from a burning balloon. I looked for video but could not find this. In 1912, British explorer Robert Scott's diary and body are found in Antarctica. He was on a historic trip for the British Empire. In 1933, the first known photo of so-called Loch Ness Monster is taken by Hugh Gray. In 1936, the Oakland Bay Bridge opens before, by the way, San Francisco Bay Bridge. In 1941, Alma Heflin is the first American female test pilot for commercial aircraft. She made her first test flight for the Piper Aircraft Corporation in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. More Pennsylvania famousness. 1942, the World War II Battle of Guadalcanal begins between the Allied and Japanese forces in the Solomon Islands. In 1954, Ellis Island, where my grandparents came into the United States from, the immigration station in New York Harbor is closed. For a tour of the island, click the link. In 1965, Venera 2 is launched by the Soviet Union towards Venus, and to see photos of the of what Venus looks like from the ground. In 1966, Buzz Aldrin takes the first selfie, a photo of himself performing an extravehicular activity in space during the Gemini program. In 1968, U.S. Supreme Court, Epperson versus Arkansas. Court declares unconstitutional Arkansas law banning teaching of evolution in public schools. In 1970, scientists perform the first artificial synthesis of a live cell. In 1980, the U.S. space probe Voyager 1 approaches 77,000 miles of Saturn. In 1981, the second space shuttle mission, and the first time a spacecraft is launched twice, Columbia. 1990, Crown Prince Akihito is formally installed as Emperor of Japan, and he becomes the 125th Japanese monarch. And if you're hoping to see more about 1113 and 1114, they are to be continued.